Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's WNBA betting podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marino, back here with Dano Mattia. Although have to give a shout out to Jim Turvey and Matt Moore for holding it down here on the podcast and doing a really good job with our playoff preview episode. Now we have 1 day of playoffs complete. All the round one, game ones. The favorite won each of the 4 games. We did have one underdog cover, though. That was Phoenix in their loss to Minnesota. And really quick, Dano, I just want to ask you, was there anything from the first day of games that really surprised you?
No, just like last year. Favorites going. I think they went 4-0 in game ones last year, and should have been 4-0. But credit to Phoenix. It's probably the best they've played on the road this entire season. Minnesota showed where they're vulnerable, and they weren't making shots. And I did have a hefty wager on them to win 2-0 at -275, and I was a little sweaty. I was like, please don't let this happen. But yeah, no, fun games overall. Even some were ugly, but and it was good to see that the libs look good. We'll get to them, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so for this episode, we are going to focus on the Tuesday games. However, I will tease that Dano does have a look for Wednesday as well, so stick around for that. But let's start with your best bets for Tuesday. What are they, Dano?
I'm taking my queen, Benija, over 9.5 points. I just feel like she definitely is the longest tenured Liberty player on this roster. Just been an absolute stud, scores at all 3 levels. Didn't hit a 3 last game, but was very open. I wouldn't be surprised she hits 3 or 4 in this next game, but just too many opportunities to not get 10 points here, in my opinion. So love her over 9.5 points, and then I love Seattle and Vegas to go under 160.5. Not because of that crazy fourth quarter, just because I do love the number, and it's an elimination game.
All right. Sounds good. Well, let's get into these matchups a little bit more, and we will start with the Liberty and Dream game 2. And by the way, if you are listening to this podcast and not watching on YouTube, I have to point out that Dano's backdrop is looking lovely. There's a Sabrina Ionescu jersey behind him, a nice little aesthetic with the seafoam. But basically, as you mentioned, very much to be expected in terms of the outcome of this first game. Liberty, covered the 13-point spread easily, but I think there was a little bit of a surprise in the sense that you and I have been raving all year about Leonie Fibish. I wasn't necessarily expecting the change in the starting lineup. Kudos to Sandy Brandello because it absolutely worked. Leo was the leading scorer with 21 points.
Yeah, 7 for 8 from the field, just incredible. Her stroke, I feel like every time she shoots it, I expect it to go in at this point. It's one of the best shots in the league, just aesthetically. And she gives you length on the defensive end. I feel like she has one every 3 games where she picks off, right after we score, she picks off a pass and scores again. She did that again in the playoffs. She's just extremely mature and poised for being as young as she is, and very thankful that Sandy made that change. Not saying this is a slide against Salute. I just think it brings the ceiling of this team to a different level and helps them get off to great starts. And so with this, with her in the lineup, it makes sense why the spread for the first quarter is 4.5 and the first half is 8.5. It's a big number. And the Liberty should cover it. And I normally would bet that, but we've seen the Liberty, kind of play down to certain teams. And I would want nothing more than to see them just come out and blow out Atlanta again. But the number is big, and it's hard to knock out a team. I know that we're not losing, but I could see Atlanta making it interesting. But still, to your point, Leo changes the trajectory of this team if she's getting starter minutes and playing in a starter role.
I've been saying for weeks now, I think her addition on this team And I mean, this was just a great pickup by Jonathan Kolb and the Liberty front office. Somebody who's technically a rookie, but is, you know, older, has played overseas, has been like an MVP of one of the leagues in Europe. Like, this to me not only changes the course of this series, but this could be the difference between the Liberty, you know, winning it all or not. Just because, to your point, I think last season they struggled a bit defensively, particularly on the perimeter. And as you said, she just adds a ton on both ends of the floor. Okay, so what I'm hearing from you though is the spread, which we're seeing game 2, Libs favored by 12.5. We think they should do this. We think they should cover. We think they should cover throughout the game, but just a little bit of hesitation. I mean, I was relieved from a Liberty standpoint to see that they came out aggressively from the jump, and Sabrina definitely was scoring early. So that was a relief, but it is, I see your hesitation in terms of like, is this going to continue?
Yeah, I mean, and Atlanta Dream, you know, I've said a lot of unpleasant things about them, but they're professionals. They're still all great athletes, great
Yeah,
basketball players. Uh, I don't think they're going to roll over and die. Now, if the Libs come out, hit them in the mouth, like, you know, would be amazing. Um, but like, even, you know, before the pod talking about taking the Dream team total under, it's at 71.5. And I mean, I just think they could find their way into 75. I mean, you know, the entire team falls down over and over again, gets to the free throw line. So, granted, we did a great job of keeping them off the line.
right.
Defense was so locked in, really to the fourth when we kind of started messing around. Um, and I didn't think they would get the cover, but still ended up winning by 14. So, uh, you know, it's just I don't know. I'm watching this more as a fan and hoping that Benija goes off.
Right.
Probably some unders to be had on the Dream side, because I don't see, you know, I mean, one of Ryan or I mean, she started really bad. I think 1 for 7.
Yeah.
I think she had 10 points in the third quarter. I could see her bouncing back a little bit. She's had some success against the Liberty in the past, but I don't see all their guards coming through on that end. So I mean, there's definitely some value there somewhere. You probably just have to dig a little bit, but for me, the clear bet that I love is Benija.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about that. So she had 10 points on Sunday. She was 5 of 10 from the floor, didn't make a three, as you mentioned. And she also had the 5 assists. But she, you know, she plays steadily. She has a role where I think that Sandy just trusts her to bring the
Mm,
intensity, trusts her to be aggressive. Again, a two-way player. She's typically guarding one of, if not the best player on the other side. So, you know, she is starting. There's just plenty of opportunity for her.
yeah, I love the open looks that she had. Uh, and that was, I mean, watching it the entire time. And also, she's great on the break. Uh, the assist number was, you know, kind of out of the ordinary, but, you know, she's making the right plays. And she's usually a great finisher. She missed, I think, a couple bunnies too. So uh, I'm a huge Benija fan. So not even just saying this, she is the, besides Leo, who's emerged, I think
Mhm.
the X factor for the Liberty success. So that's why she's consistently playing 25, 30 minutes a game, and going to be open a lot when you have players like Sabrina, Stewie, and Jonquel on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I don't think there's much else to say about that. We're expecting this series to be complete, you know, here
Yeah.
on Tuesday. But
Get
let's
ready for Vegas.
exactly. And speaking of, that's the other matchup that we have on Tuesday, which is Storm at Aces. You like the under in this game, but let's first just kind of preview the matchup overall, because the Aces did end up covering the 9.5, which wasn't a given throughout this game. And by the way, shout out to you, because you had a sweet little parlay with bets
Uh,
on all 4 of the
yeah.
games on Sunday, different
Thank
variations.
God.
And the last one you needed was, I believe, aces -9, which they managed to get. But be honest, you you were worried about that. Were you not going into the fourth quarter?
Oh, for sure. Because I had hit aces -4.5 and -3.5. Uh, got to the point where I was like, okay, um, like you see the wheels starting to turn a little bit. Asia was a no show in the first half. She's not going to do that two halves in a row. Uh, but I also hit the over, which looked to be like crystal clear going into the fourth quarter, and then hard to explain. I mean, because the Aces defense, yeah, it's been better. It's been a lot better, from the start of the season to where they're at now. Uh, but to hold a team to 0 for 12 in an entire quarter, I think forced four turnovers in that quarter
Six,
and only
six
give up 2 points.
turnovers.
Six turnovers in that quarter?
Yes, and they only scored 2 points. The Storm.
I mean, one, I was thankful, but two, I just you had to expect a three to fall, especially at the end. I'm like, someone's going to hit something, but uh, I feel bad for NECA. I feel bad for Skylar.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people's expectations of the Storm are extremely high just based off the names on this roster. You probably got the best playoff game Jordan Horson is going to have for a while. And still, I mean, you're not really getting anything from Jewel Lloyd, which, here's a nugget. I'm betting her under in the next game. I think it's at 16.5. The only way she gets this is if she gets to the free throw line like 7 times. Granted, she leads the league in free throws, but thought the refs were actually doing a great job of not, giving calls away both ways in that game.
Yep.
The playoffs are more physical anyways. You're going to see less calls. And Joe Lloyd, the confidence isn't there. I think I don't know where she was at in the fourth quarter or if she was even in. And
So to that point, let me just jump in real quick, Dano,
yeah,
because I'm pretty sure I don't remember seeing her in the fourth, which I don't know if that was just because the team essentially threw in the towel. I don't know how to explain that fourth quarter because I think what you were alluding to was like, yes, the Aces defense has been better, but when you score 2 points in the fourth quarter, all those turnovers, 0 of 12 from the floor, like, I'm sorry, it's not just what the defense is doing to you. That is also you getting in your own way. Coupled with the fact that the Aces, I noticed, they were just feeling it. Like, and maybe that's because, again, when you're forcing stops and you get to just quickly run down to the other end, it gives you a lot of momentum, and they were making contested shots. So the question about Jewel, and I was trying to find this online. If someone found it, feel free to comment or whatever at me. But like, we know Jewel has had a knee issue. She missed the last, I think, 3 games of the regular season. So I don't know if it was just like maybe her knee was off. I couldn't find the Storm post game presser. I'm like looking on YouTube, couldn't find it. Maybe they were too embarrassed to post it. I don't know. So I wasn't sure if it was like a matchup thing, a discipline thing, or because like the game, even though they fell apart, theoretically, I mean, the game was in hand going into the fourth quarter. So theoretically, you would want, one of your
yeah,
best scorers out there.
yeah. It didn't make much sense to me at all. But then again, like to me, Jewel's been inefficient all year. One of the worst shooting seasons we've seen from a volume shooter, and uh, I mean, you're getting good minutes from Gabby Williams. I mean, I thought they would. I mean, Jim spoke to this on the preview pod. Thought they would use some more Sammy Wickham, but uh, they didn't.
Right.
I mean, she was over, or Jewel was over two in the fourth, so she was out there, just non-factor.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of similar to Kelsey Plum on the other side. It was like she scored. I think she started over three in the fourth and made a layup. I think it was like the first basket came at like 7 minutes in the fourth, and then they stuck with Tiffany Hayes the rest of the way, who was playing incredible.
Yeah. She was great.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Jewel finished with 6 points. Kelsey Plum finished with 2 points. I actually am glad that you brought up KP because I was going to ask you about this. I think sometimes when you see a player who is like a fairly big name and has, you know, done well in her career, like you think, okay, you wonder, should I bet like the bounce back, right? So her points spread is at 14 and a half. Her total for points, I should say. Are you going anywhere near that for KP?
I mean, I feel like she can knock in some threes and make a couple layups, but I'm not going anywhere near her over. Um,
Okay.
I know that. Uh,
Just checking, just checking.
well, and also, I mean, like I didn't understand. Like they left her on Skylar. Skylar was killing her. Like
Yeah.
going by. I mean, not just scoring, but getting by her. And I think Skylar ended up with 9 assists. Or no, couldn't be. I think she had 8 going into the fourth, and
Yep,
they
she had
obviously
8.
didn't make any shots.
Yeah, okay. So good to know. But as far as props are concerned, and I do want to obviously get your take on the under, but since we're kind of in this mode, let me run a couple by you. I think that NECA and Skylar Diggins Smith are two players that I'm looking at targeting because like their points, both of them right now, their lines are at 15 and a half. And I think that's perfectly doable. I mean, Skylar had 16 in game one, NECA only had 13. But again, you you didn't score at all. You scored 2 points in the fourth quarter. Like there's got to be more opportunities. And for me, it's going to have to be those two players really taking over. And you know, Skylar, to her credit, 16 and 8, you know, pretty good game. But like she's able to dictate a lot of things. She has the ball in her hands a lot. She really has kind of the green light. You know, she just has the autonomy really to score when she wants, pass it when she wants. So yeah, I'm looking at those two players, and if you look at sort of their, you know, their history, and what they've done recently, what they've done against the Aces, it all checks out numbers wise as far as like these are numbers that they can hit.
Yeah, NECA played 39 minutes, attempted 17 shots. She should be going over. And I mean, like, this is obviously, you know, if you don't win, your season is over. So, uh,
Exactly.
to me, I think you can look at the volume disparity there. It's really, you know, Skylar, NECA, Gabby are getting the majority of shots right now, and I don't see that changing unless Jewel magically. I mean, Jewel didn't even look comfortable out there. So, uh, you know, the Aces did let Mercedes Russell, you know, be open a little bit, and then there were a couple times that the Aces went small. Uh, I mean, you got 6 points off the bench from Jordan Horson. That was about it. So, I mean, yeah, overs with those two players does feel good.
Okay.
And you could even talk me into Gabby Williams if it was like 11 and a half.
Gabby Williams, I'm seeing 12 and a half. I'm seeing 12 and a half right now.
Yeah, that's a little. I mean,
But you know what's interesting though is like Gabby had a great third quarter. I mean,
fantastic.
she I believe scored most of her points in the third. Again, if you get a little bit more consistency throughout, I could see it. And again, with the season on the line, you know, it's one of those situations again where I just don't know if I feel comfortable going, you know, Storm +9. Aces did cover, as I mentioned, the 9.5 in the first game. Like I want to say this is probably your last game of the season. This is do or die. You know, your perennial all-star players should show out. You should be competitive. You should certainly fight a hell of a lot more than you did in the fourth last game. So I want to say that, but the Storm just haven't given me enough to believe. And that being said, you're going with the under for the full game.
Yeah, and I mean, like if you do kind of subscribe to the theory of our backs are against the wall, like I think this is a great opportunity to take the Storm in the first half, at
Okay.
least against the spread, maybe even money line depending on the odds, and then. Uh, you know, I mean, I think, like I said, you could have got the Aces at great numbers yesterday. But the Aces do not want to even give themselves an opportunity to get to a game three. But I mean, they have been starting slow in these first halves as of late, and I mean, like they scored 9 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, and you know what? That's another thing I want to bring up. Do you think that there was a little bit of emotion going on with Asia post, MVP ceremony, that sort of thing?
Potentially
Because she
started
definitely,
1 for 8.
yeah, and I mean, granted, I thought that the Storm were doing a good job defensively. We can only hold her down for so long, but like she was shooting a lot of contested. She was just trying to shoot over the Storm players. Um, and then second half no problems. So yeah, maybe a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, I don't expect her to ever start 1 for 8 again, but I've seen worse. So
Yeah, exactly. All right. I guess that pretty much sums it up for Tuesday, but I know you
hmm
feel strongly about at least
yes,
one of the Wednesday games, so we might as well squeeze this in,
let's
and
do it.
we're going to have another pod out on Wednesday as well to break down the other two series, game twos with Sun Fever and Lynx Mercury. But look, Dano's here now. If you're a listener, you're going to get his thoughts first, and then we'll recalibrate for Wednesday. So, Dano, what do you got?
Yeah, and I'm gonna bet it right after this records. But uh, I love the Sun in Game One. I mean, so many people were back in the fever, but that wasn't the reason. If you go back last few seasons, so this being the sixth consecutive playoff series, uh, but the last five in Game Ones, some were 5-0 against the spread in those Game Ones. In those Game Twos, 0-5 against the spread. I do see that trend continuing. I love that the fever shot horrible. I love it. I mean, you got like the bottom of the barrel from Caitlin. Caitlin is not. I don't see her being kept down again. Uh, Bonner had the best game she's had in months, and I mean, I think this goes 3. I really do. I'm not going to bet as much on the money line here with the fever, but uh, I mean, we forget. I mean, this team did beat the Sun, and they were kind of in control of that game the entire way. Yes, it was at home,
Right.
uh, but I mean, it's not like the crowd is a huge factor. It's probably 50% Sun or Fever fans, anyways.
Yep.
But we've seen this team drop games to the Wings last year or 2 years ago. I forget who they lost to, or they lost to the Lynx last year. And even
Yep.
this is after blowing out some of these teams in game ones. So I do expect the trend to continue, and I'm taking the Fever plus 7.5 and doing some money line there. If you
Interesting.
want to bet both sides on game three, I mean, this is if you're crazy to win the series. I think they're both at like plus 600. Um, I know Jim gave out one of the combos or like guessing the correct combination of like game one, game two, game three. But I do think the Sun get it done in Indiana, um, but it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
um,
look, I'm seeing Connecticut to win the series 2-1 at plus 600.
yeah,
So
I
that
mean,
sounds like something that would pique your interest.
yeah, absolutely. I may have already bet Sun Fever Sun already at like plus 650.
Okay, copy that.
But I do need the fever to come through, and then I can always hedge in game three. But
There you go.
uh, I do think they're going to come through. I think the money's there, right? If we get a game three with Caitlin Clark in an elimination game, it's going to do numbers on ESPN2 on Thursday. So I hope to see it. Uh, show me something great, Fever, please.
Show me the money. Yeah, so Caitlin, 4 of 17 in the first game, 2 of 13 from three. The two
Ooh.
threes both came in the second half, so only 11 points. Obviously, we know she's capable of way more. Shout out to Jim, by the way, for pointing out how bad a matchup this is for Nalissa Smith. 9
Oh,
minutes, 0 points, 1 rebound. 1 rebound. I mean, again, only 9 minutes. Dantist was an anomaly. Not an anomaly,
bright spot.
a bright spot, but like I don't know what word I was thinking of. But I actually wanted to see, this is another thing that Jim talked about. Like Temi Fagbenle, I don't know why her minutes, she had 13, so disjointed. Like very not, they were just not, flowing. I do think this score is a little bit deceiving. There was a good amount of garbage time, even with how horrible like the Fever were shooting the ball. But I'm all about it. Like think back to late in the season when Indiana played Vegas 2 games in a row with a day in between. And, the first game they did not cover. They pushed the second game. So they lost only by 4 to Vegas. And I just think that having this unique opportunity for them to, be in a position where, again, it's do or die, season's on the line. They just played Connecticut. They shot horribly. But otherwise, like, and I know Rebecca was talking about this throughout the broadcast, like Caitlin played quite well, just wasn't shooting the ball well, was for the most part, taking care of the ball. So look, I can't fight you on it. I can't wait to get the opinions of Joe Delara and Brian Fonseca as well, because they're going to be on our next episode for the Wednesday slate. But any final thoughts, Dano, before we let you go for this edition of Buckets?
No, it's been awesome. Awesome season, awesome first round. Enjoy every minute of it. Watch it on every game is nationally televised, so no reason not to watch.
I know. Absolutely. Good times. I'm sure this won't be the last time I speak to you. We'll probably have you on very soon again as the playoffs progress. So thanks again, Dano. And thanks everybody for listening to Buckets. As I said, we will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, with more bets. If you like what you hear, as always, please rate and review the podcast. Download the award-winning Action app as well if you haven't yet. Dano and I are going to be logging some bets here very shortly. And let's get buckets.